on, sports fans? It's your boy, the sports reporter without pay. Before you do anything else, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can get notifications on all the latest content when I drop it. Before I get started, let me give a shout out to my boys over at Say What, Say It Again, Mr. Tyrus, Ray, Charles, Avery, and James. Them boys be putting out some good content. Check them out on Facebook Live. Look for them. Again, Say What, Say It Again Sports. Follow those boys. Listen, we halfway through the NBA season. Each team has played at least 40 games. So with that, we're going to jump into an NBA midseason recap. This is part one. Make sure y'all look out for part two as well. Let's start off with some surprises. We're going to start in the Eastern Conference, at the top of the Eastern Conference with the Chicago Bulls. I expected them to be good. We saw all the offseason additions they made. They go get DeMar DeRozan. They add Alex Caruso. They pick up Vucevic towards the end of last year. They get Lonzo Ball. Like, we expected this team to be good, but I didn't expect them to be this good this fast. Like, DeRozan and Levine are playing like one of the best duos in the league. They might even be the highest scoring duo in the league right now. They meshed extremely fast. That team is playing extremely well on both sides of the ball. And here we are halfway through the season, and they're sitting atop the Eastern Conference again. I expected them to be good. Just not this good this fast. My second surprise, we're going to stick right there in the Eastern Conference. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who saw this coming? Like, I can't even say I expected them to be good at all, let alone this good. Earlier in the day, they were sitting at fourth in the East. Right now, they're sitting at sixth, but 1 through 6 in the East is separated by 2.5 games. They win 2 games, and they're in first in the East. That's how close the East is, and that's how good they've been. And they're not just okay good. They have the best defense in the Eastern Conference, giving up the fewest points per game, and they have the best point differential, beating opponents by about 5 points per game in the entire Eastern Conference. They're doing it in an unorthodox manner for this particular era. They're going out there playing 3 7-footers every night. Darius Garland has ascended. He's playing like an all-star. Shout out to Cleveland. They're good, and again, I did not expect it. Moving over to the Western Conference, my surprise is the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, a team that we saw kind of on the cusp last year. They make the play-in. They get into the playoffs, losing the first round. You expect them to take that next step, but they are playing lights out. And the most impressive thing about Memphis is they were able to win a lot of games without their superstar. In games Ja Morant missed, the Memphis Grizzlies win 11-2. They're playing some really solid basketball. They're now in that upper echelon in the Western Conference, and I did not see this coming. Obviously, if there are surprises, there are going to be some disappointing teams. First on that list has to be the Los Angeles Lakers. They make all these acquisitions in the offseason. They go get Dwight Howard, bring him back. They go get Melo. They bring in Russ. They go get Malik Monk, Wayne Ellington, Kendrick Nunn, Kent Bazemore, Trevor Reed. They bring a complete roster overhaul, and this team has just been mediocre, barely average, right? We did not expect that. We expect a team with LeBron James and that much talent around them to be sitting atop the Western Conference, to be competing for number 1, number 2 seed and looking towards the playoffs. I expect them to possibly right the ship in the second half, but for right now, the Los Angeles Lakers have been mediocre and extremely disappointing. In the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics, this is a team that for the last few years have had some playoff success. They've been to, 3 Eastern Conference finals. A lot of people say Brown and Tatum need to be broke up. I'm not on that boat. I think they'll work. I think wings are the best commodity in the NFL, and they have 2 young studs. You keep them. You don't break that up. But right now, if the playoffs were to start, those guys wouldn't be in, and that's extremely disappointing. This is a team that we expected to compete in the Eastern Conference for championships for the next few years. But while the Boston Celtics have been doing this, the rest of the East has been doing this. You get Milwaukee, they have Greek and Middleton, and they go out and get Drew Holiday, and they win a championship. You get Brooklyn, they go get KD, Harden, and Kyrie. Miami made moves. They go get Kyle Lowry in the offseason, and Boston's just stood pat and not quite put the right talent around Tatum and Brown. They can possibly write it for right now. Again, very underwhelming. And the last 2 teams that have been very disappointing for me, and I'm going to go ahead and put them together, is the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks. Both these teams made the playoffs last year in the Eastern Conference 4-5. They have a first round matchup, and they look like 2 young up and coming teams. You got Julius Randle and RJ Barrett over in New York, and then you got Trae Young with John Collins and Cam Reddish over in Atlanta. As a matter of fact, New York just picked up Cam Reddish. Go figure. I'm talking about these 2 teams together. But both of these teams have been extremely under. As a matter of fact, Atlanta went on to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Now, I told people they would be disappointed this year and that they wouldn't make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I still expected them to be competing for a playoff spot. The playoffs started today. They're sitting about 5 or 6 games out of a playoff spot. It's ridiculous. And New York hasn't been much better. They've been up and down all season, just sitting, hovering right around 500. For what they accomplished last year, both of those teams have been very disappointing up to this point so far. Now we're gonna play a little game of pretenders and contenders, looking at the teams that are sitting atop both conferences, or the teams that you kind of hear the names floating around that you expect them to compete for a championship. Sports Reporter Pay is gonna give you the teams that he think are pretenders. Not really for real. And then our contenders, these guys really have a shot. We're going to start in the Eastern Conference. It's ironic. I had both these teams as part of my surprises is I didn't expect them to be this good. And it's probably why I have them as pretenders. And that's the Chicago Bulls and the Cleveland Cavaliers. With the Chicago Bulls, the most playoff experience you have on the team is DeMar Rosen, the guy who came up short numerous times over with Toronto. Then again, the times he was coming up short, he was losing to a LeBron James-led team. But the rest of that team, you don't see much playoff experience. Nikola Vucevic had one playoff series in Orlando. You have Caruso, who won a championship with LA. But if the guy with the most playoff experience is the guy coming off the bench, that don't really do you a whole lot of good. Lonzo Ball's never been to the playoffs. Zach LaVine's never been to the playoffs. You got a lot of guys playing meaningful minutes on that team who've never played in games that really matter, right? So I think by the time they get to the playoffs, they may win in the first round, but come that second round when they have to play against a Philly, a Miami, a Brooklyn, a Milwaukee, I don't think they can beat any of those teams in the 7-game series because they just don't have the experience, right? Maybe next year, but for now, I don't see Chicago making the type of noise that a lot of people think they will. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers, they just don't have a star. Like Darius Garland is very good, but come playoff time, when a team goes on a 15-0, 10-0 run, you need somebody you can give the ball to and say, hey, stop the bleeding, go get us a bucket. And I don't know if Cleveland has that. Closest thing they have is Darius Garland, and he's not that, right? Like, he's just not that. Cleveland doesn't have the star power and pack enough punch to go up against those heavy hitters in the Eastern Conference. They're having a heck of a season, good for them. Their coach is probably going to win Coach of the Year. But as far as being a true contender, I just don't see it with Cleveland. Over in the Western Conference, the Utah Jazz, this is like Groundhog Day. They do this every single year. They win a whole bunch of regular season games. They get to the playoffs and flame out. Bunch of regular season games, playoffs and flame out. They're going to do the same thing again. And Donovan Mitchell is the legit star in this league. But the problem is, in this league, all these teams have 2 and 3 stars. They have 2 or 3 guys who can go out and give you 30. And when your second best scoring option is either Bogdanovich or Mike Conley, that's not very good. And then, or Jordan Clarkson, the guy coming off the bench, when you're going up against teams that have 2 and 3 and 4 guys that can get hot on any given night and give you the business, that's Utah's problem every time they get to the playoffs. That's the Donovan Mitchell show, and that's it. And then Rudy Gobert gets exposed in the playoffs because he can't come out and guard the pick and roll. He's just a shot blocker and a rim defender. Can't guard the pick and roll, and that's what teams are going to do. They're going to play him off of the floor. Then once he's off the floor, Utah's not a very great defensive team. So they have a lot of problems that they face every year, and nobody's done anything to fix them. They literally came back this year with the exact same team from last year. Their big move has been Rudy Gay. I don't see it with Utah. And a lot of people are going to kill me for this. The Phoenix Suns. Yeah, but Sports Reporter Without Pay, they was in the NBA Finals last year. Well, who did they beat to get there? What happened? First round, AD goes out and LeBron's hobbling through the series. Second round, they play a Jamal Murray less Denver Nuggets. Third round, a Kawhi Leonard less LA Clippers. They did not play a single team intact with their stars. I get it. The NBA, sports in general, sometimes a war of attrition. Whoever can stay healthy. And the Phoenix Suns did that. But as soon as they went up against a team that had all their stars intact, they lost. And that's not to say that they weren't a good team. I just don't see it with them. I don't see it. Like, your best player is almost 40 years old, right? I just don't see it with them in the Western Conference. I think they are a notch below the couple of teams I'm going to name in my contenders. So for me, the Phoenix Suns, very good regular season team, but they're pretenders. I don't think they have a real shot at winning it. My contenders in the Eastern Conference, Brooklyn Nets and Milwaukee Bucks. Enough said. We don't need to go into no details about them. We know what both those teams bring to the table. Milwaukee Bucks are the reigning NBA champs. Brooklyn Nets, super team. Like, we know what those two teams are. In the Western Conference, the Golden State Warriors, they rebuilt this team kind of like their 15 and 16 success teams, like pre-KD. Like, you have Steph Curry with his scoring ability. You have Draymond Green with his defensive ability and facilitating. And then you have a bunch of athletic, versatile 6'4" to 6'8" wings who can kind of do a bit of everything, and then they switch everything on defense. In the early years in 15, 16, you had Klay Thompson, you had with Draymond, and you had Harrison Barnes, and you had Iggy, and you had Livingston. And now this team, you have Klay Thompson, who just came back, Gary Payton II, where did he come from? And then you have Juan Toscano Anderson, Jordan Poole, you have Andrew Wiggins, you have Otto Porter. Like, this team is built just like that 15 team, and they're playing the same brand of basketball, and they're winning a lot of games. And with Klay Thompson returning and looking like he's going to be anything remotely close to the Klay Thompson of old, Golden State is going to be a very tough team to beat in the 7-game series. My other contender in the Western Conference, the Memphis Grizzlies. And like I said when I called them a surprise team, the fact that that team could win as much as they did without their star lets you know that that team don't just come and go as he goes. Like, they're a solid team top to bottom. And then you add him on top of that as a legitimate star in this league who can go out and get busy with the best of them. Memphis Grizzlies going to be a tough out. Don't nobody want to see them in those 7-game series. There are two teams that I'm kind of like on the fence about. I don't know if they're pretenders or contenders. One in the East, one in the West. We're going to start in the East with the Miami Heat. Like, they're a very good team, right? But I've always been on the fence, like, can you win a championship with Jimmy Butler as your best player? Like, when you go to war and Jimmy Butler's your lead guy and the other team has a Kevin Durant, or the other team has a Joel Embiid, or the other team has a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, is Jimmy Butler that ilk of player? I'm not sure he is. But with the additions Miami made, going to pick up a veteran point guard like Kyle Lowry, a guy like Tyler Hero who's ascended, he's probably going to win 6th Man of the Year. Duncan Robinson, one of the best shooters in the league. Bam Adebayo is an all-star center. Like, they have a very deep, solid team. I'm just on the fence. Like, with Jimmy Butler as the best guy, I'm just not sure. But the team is so deep, you kind of want to believe in them, right? And they play hard every night. Like, Miami Heat teams always play hard. So I'm on the fence with them. And the team in the West is the Los Angeles Lakers, right? Like, we talked about how underwhelming they've been, but it's LeBron James. Like, he's the guy that you just don't bet against, right? And then he has talent around him. Like, for all the quirks that come with him, Russell Westbrook is still an all-time great. Anthony Davis is an all-time great talent. We just saw what LeBron and AD did without a real third star, winning the championship, what people call the Mickey Mouse or Bubble Championship, right? And then you added guys like Carmelo Anthony isn't the Carmelo Anthony of old, but he's the kind of guy that can get in a playoff game, get hot, and give you 25. Malik Monk is really playing well lately, right? Like, I think Vogel has to figure out the rotations, so I don't know if they're pretenders, but I don't know if I want to quite call them contenders neither. I just know if I was at the top of the Western Conference, I wouldn't want to play the Los Angeles Lakers in a 7-game series. And that concludes part 1 of our NBA midseason review. Y'all be on the lookout for part 2. Check it out. It's on the way. Like I said before, like the video, get in those comments, talk to me, and I'll talk back to you. Subscribe to the page, hit that notification bell so you can get all the up-to-date content. Last but not least, we're going to shout my boys out again and say what said again. Got much love for y'all. Till next time, it's your boy, the Sports Reporter Without Pay.